Hello and welcome to Connect to Love here on PRN-FM, where each week is a wonderful exploration into the many facets of love, oneness, and connection. I'm Lisa LaRose, and I'm joined by my co-host, Michael J. Russ. I want to say welcome, Michael. It is always such a delight, and I'm so grateful you make the time to join me each week. It's an absolute blessing. So how are you today?
Definitely that. I'm awesome. It's definitely a blessing, and yeah, I'm so grateful that we have had this journey as long as we have, and it continues to expand and unfold. It's really wonderful, really wonderful. This is, our audience may or may not know that we have never met each other face to face and stood in the same room or looked in each other's eyes, so to speak. And that's what makes this so treasured in my view, because we're able to connect on a level each week, and sometimes several times a week, in conversations in a way that is divinely inspired. So that's what I love about it.
It is, and it's very precious to me. And even though I'm not able to look into your eyes, I feel your heart and I feel your soul. And I think that that's why I look forward to it every week. And the conversations we have both on and off the air are always so fulfilling. And I thought, after we did the episode last week, which was all about charting your course, of course, my brain starts to think, and I thought, well, what if it's about being the captain of your own ship? Like we're in this vessel. As I always speak about my body as a vessel. And I never really thought about it until after we did the show last week. And I thought, here I am. I'm in a vessel charting my own course. So I guess I'm the captain of my soul. So if I am the captain of my soul, then where do I want to go? What do I want to do? The conversations that we have always bring up more pathways for inquiry, and I absolutely adore it. I love the idea that we connect. One of the things that was so interesting, I've been clearing out and cleaning out, and I'm coming across old books that I haven't picked up in a while. And one of the books that I saw that was buried under some things was actually entitled Handbook for the Soul. Of course, right? Of course it's called Handbook for the Soul. And so I opened it up randomly, and of course, what page do I open it up to? But love is the answer, right? And it was an essay by Dr. Jerry Jampolsky. He was a medical doctor. Yeah. Was he on the show with you when you did the shows with Glenn?
Jampolsky was not, but we referred to him a lot. I think it's because Glenn had years earlier an interview with him on a different radio show in San Francisco. But Jampolsky wrote the book about forgiveness, and I'm speaking the title of this to Forgiveness is the Greatest Gift of All. That's what he wrote. I read a number of years ago. The greatest gift of all that you can give yourself. You know, the greatest gift that you can give yourself is forgiveness, because it allows you to continue to let go and move on. Mm-hmm. You know, that's the key. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to pick it up because I'm not that familiar with his work, but I love the words and I wrote what he in this one essay. He said we nourish our souls when we give our love away unconditionally to others. But to nourish the soul, we have to learn to rid ourselves of the defenses of the ego that keep us from our soul, to let go of guilt, blame, fear, and negativity, which I thought was so incredible. And then he went on to talk about a practice that both he and his wife did every morning. And he said they would wake up at 4:30 in the morning, and while they were still in bed, imagining the light coming from within, and reminding themselves that they are the light of the world, they would awaken and watch the world become light. And I thought, oh my goodness. So that was sort of how they chose to consciously embrace the day and the adventure that their soul was going to go on, which I thought was really amazing. And because so many of us don't really, we hear this word, soul, and we know that we all have a soul. At least I hope that most of our audience knows they are a multifaceted being. But sometimes our soul speaks to us very softly. We're not getting these, like I did today, finding that book. It speaks through intuition, synchronicity, peace, but it's very quiet. Oftentimes we are completely bombarded by these external forces that kind of take us away from that. And so how do we actually ask ourselves, like he and his wife would do, what does our soul want to express today? And then give ourselves full permission to explore that. And I thought it's really, when you and I were speaking earlier, we were saying, like, how do you learn to trust that inner guidance? How do we know that we have this higher self that already has all of the answers, and we are the captain of this vessel, and what we want to bring in is already there for us. It's just for us to access it. So I'd love to hear your thoughts, because I know you've been bubbling on this as well, Michael, and I'm glad that you know Jerry's work, because I'm not as familiar with it, but I thought I couldn't go wrong when I open it up and love is the answer. Right?
Yeah. So it harks back to one thing. A number of years ago, it must have been 25 years ago, I read Journey of Souls by Dr. Michael Newton, which happens to be one of two books, both of the books, Dr. Michael Newton's PhD, his book, Journey of Soul, Destiny of Soul. And I've still not finished Destiny of Soul 20 years later, mainly because it's so rich and deep. It's the follow-up to Journey of Souls, which is a very, very easy read. It gets more challenging. Destiny of Souls is more challenging because it digs into the nuts and bolts of your soul group and how it answers a lot of questions that came up after the original book, Journey of Souls. However, I would hardly agree with Bashar that if the next book everybody should read is Journey of Souls, mainly because it helps you understand that you made a choice to be here. And it goes through how that occurs, every step by step, about how you made you as a soul, inhabiting a soul group. This is a group of souls that you have incarnated with many times before. You all play different roles in each other's lives to accomplish various objectives to help you ascend, to help you move up the ladder of ascension with regard to earning various badges, believe it or not, for courage and for overcoming fear and self-doubt, these kinds of things. You might not know it, but you're here to accomplish some sort of mission. You're here. Your soul is here, down in this earthly plane, playing around in this 3D playground. And you're doing it because this is a very dense, energetic place, energetically dense, where there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of doubt, worry, a lot of ego-based thinking and acting. And we are unique in the universe in that we present, this earthly plane presents a reality that you can go through and fulfill your mission. You wade through the density of the place, hopefully waking up to the fact that you have the ability to wade through the density and to elevate yourself in terms of your frequencies and thinking. And you've chosen your parents, you've chosen your grandparents, and they've chosen you. And it's this wonderful synchronicity. Everything works together. And you don't concern yourself with how. But the first place I came across, it was the book, Journey of Souls, the first place I came around, I came around to understand it, that we have only 90% of our soul doesn't incarnate with us. Only 10% does, because it's such energy that it would blow our body apart. It would blow our head apart. It can't come down here and deal with this body that we have. So only 10% of our soul has incarnated. Now the rest of your soul, the other 90%, knows everything about you. It knows every life you've been in, every situation, every circumstance, every moment, everything. And it knows exactly what your mission is here. And as Bashar loves to say, don't worry about the how. Give that to your higher self. Let them figure it out, because you'll go run around in circles down here. What your job is, your mission is to figure out what it is that you desire, what you intend to do, and then turn that how over to something greater than yourself. And some people would say, okay, source, possibly, but your higher self is the aspect of you that knows everything about you and what you want and what you desire, and I mean, just literally everything. And connecting with them should be a step that you actually connecting with your soul, so to speak. And once I understood that aspect of things, that I had a higher self, it kind of sparked other questions and other ways of connecting. I started to really kind of perceive this higher self that we all have, mine at least, and how I could connect with it and how I could actively turn the how of things over to my higher self, which is an interesting thing because we're taught from childhood to make goals and to make sure that you have a goal to go here. Okay, so the steps, here are the very steps. Here's how to get there, right? Figure out how to get there. Put together your life plan, your business plan if you're starting on that sort of thing. And what Bashar was talking about, which is so interesting, is that no. You just figure out where you want to go, what you want to do, set your intention, and then you turn over how it happens to your higher self and let it guide you. Let it figure out the nuts and bolts and then bring those possibilities to you, and then you choose with your free will. You choose which of those possibilities you'd like to pursue, which avenue you'd like to pursue, where'd you like to go. Would you like to turn left versus right? You got both ways. They've been presented for you. The synchronicities that occur when you meet somebody which you believe is through happenstance or any kind of some sort of a coincidence. Oh, wow, I was just thinking about you, right? And I was thinking about you because I wanted to do this thing, and you are already doing that thing, right? So why did this person show up at that particular time? Because you allowed it to happen. There are no accidents. There are no coincidences, and I love to live that way because everything has meaning. Everything has meaning, and it's wonderful. But that's how I came upon the higher self, and I encourage everybody to read that book because, as I tell anyone, if you have a fear of dying, a fear of your parents dying, your brother or sister, anything going, just read, or best friend, whatever, read the book, and you will understand, and you will not be afraid. Your fear will go away, and you'll understand that everything has a purpose, that you never die, that you're just here, so to speak, you're wearing a suit of clothes. That's what you're doing. You're going from a light being to physical form, wearing a suit of clothes. That suit of clothes represents whatever your race, your ethnicity, whether you're male or female, whatever it may be. You're literally putting on a suit of clothes, very much like someone goes on stage and an actor goes on stage playing a various character, playing a character of some kind, and that your mission here is varied. It's something individual. It's unique to you. That's really the word I'm looking for. It's unique to you, and that if you become aware of that, then your focus will change. Because, as I like to say, once you're aware of something, you can never be unaware of it. Right. So if you're aware of the fact that now that 90% of your soul is not with you, it is there helping you and guiding you along the way, and there to ask information to work on the how of everything. All you have to do is take inspired action, move in the right direction, make choices that come to you. That is a brilliant way to live. And I believe that it was Carol Collins and the Teachers that were talking about divinely inspired, being divinely inspired. Well, where do you think that divinity is coming from? That it's coming from something greater than you, your higher self, and ultimately Source as well. So we're all part of Source. We're all drops from the same well. And what's interesting, and I know you have to read Destiny of Souls to get to this, however, in that book, it covers the process of how a soul is created, how a soul comes to be. And it's the most amazing thing. I'm not going to ruin it for everybody. It's the most amazing thing that it blew me away. I will tell you that, because that's the one question people say. Okay, well, how many souls are there, and how do they come to be? How does the soul birth? And the whole process is just laid out very simply, based on his understanding of his connections with through super hypnosis in the life between lives of the people that he has put under that super hypnosis. So various thousands of people he put under super hypnosis, and he was able to figure all this information out. And it's mind blowing. It's mind blowing. And if you turn,
magnificent.
Yeah, you perceive it. It's wonderful stuff. Wonderful thing.
I actually just bought the book for somebody who recently lost their husband. It was one of the books that I felt may be a bridge to healing for her because of the wisdom that's in there. And I really appreciate you sharing that, Michael, because it's truly transformational to understand. And for anybody that's listening that may not be familiar with our terms, the higher self. So the way that we speak of the higher self, it's a constant, loving, sovereign part of ourselves. It's the inner guidance that lives within us, and it's connected to God's source energy, and it's perfect in every single aspect. We just have to trust it. Wayne Dyer was always one of the people that I was like my go-to guy. He said, when you trust in yourself, you trust in the same intelligence that created you. And I think that there's a certain piece that comes in, and I'm sure you felt this when you read that book, the fear, which is connected to the ego self, just sort of drops away. Because in my opinion, it's just an illusion. I understand for many people that fear is very real, but that part of us, the doubts that judges, the things that judge, the things that seek external approval, that's the ego. But when we go back to that higher self and the love intelligence that Dr. David Clements, that's the part that connects us. And when my father went through a 2-year journey through cancer, and he had renal cell cancer, and unfortunately in that type of cancer it spreads throughout the body, and he chose at one point that he tried lots of different options, a medical model, lots of alternative things. He went to NIH, he did a lot of experimental things, and at one point he was just ready to let go. And so he came home, he wanted to be at home, and it was not easy. It was a process. He did pretty well for 2 years, but then when his body started, the vessel that he was in started to give up, things got more difficult. And the day, I'll never forget the last day that was sort of his final day, he was not responsive, and it was very difficult for him to breathe. And I just held him, and we were all just telling him it's okay to go, that you don't have to keep fighting. You can go on, you can let go, and you're going to be joined with that infinite source of the rest of your soul, as you said.
Right.
And there was a moment when he took his last breath, and I was holding him, and I could feel his soul leave his body. It was the most transformative experience. I can not really articulate it very well, but it was so profound, and there was such an amazing sense of peace. And I was never the same. I never feared death after that. And I will cry at weddings, but I don't cry at funerals. And sometimes I think, I miss the physical presence of that person, right. But I know the grandness of that feeling. It was just like this almost like an elevation. I don't know how to explain it. Just being lifted up, and I was blessed to be able to experience that.
Yeah, we were, my first wife's grandfather, we were all in the room when he took his last breath, standing around the bed. And I know what you're talking about. It's a very surreal moment, and one that you can appreciate. And I think it was before, actually, I read the book, The Journey of Souls. And now, and since I've had, 2 best friends pass on, I had another good friend I learned passed away in April. The guy who awesome golf teacher who taught me, who is responsible for the swing that I have right now, the way I play golf, he passed on from a heart attack. And what's interesting is you do see things differently. You see, and I also treat people differently. I see something different in people. I can see through the veil of the fact that this person is their ego is in charge, right? And they're acting from that. And the ego is engaging with the 3D world that's around them and absorbing things and taking on that energy. And when you understand that process is going on, that person doesn't realize that they have a connection to something, to a greater part of themselves. And that when they're fearful or whatever, and fear, by the way, is real to the person who's experiencing it, because their perception of fear drives all of the thoughts and inner conversations and feelings that are following that perception of fear. So if you can blast through the perception of fear, then you will experience not that, but something completely different. Shift your perception just to something positive, that this is happening for me instead of to me, and it shifts everything. That one shift in perception will take you out of the fight or flight fear mode into more of a mode of understanding that you don't have to feel the way that you feel. You don't have to respond and react the way that you're reacting, and that there's a different way to experience everything. And that once I realized that, it was life has become so much easier. I mean, I live a life that's very much like yours. I create my own income every single month and have for 40 years in my own business. And what I used to do in the first 10 years is I used to live with a little fear, a lot of fear in the beginning, but that fear would always kind of like be there. Will I still do this next month? Will this still happen next month? And eventually I stopped asking that question, because I just trusted that if I had faith in myself and I connected to the greater part of me, that was that loving, nurturing energy that was there to help me move forward with whatever it is that I chose, that I just gave up the how. Because the how is the thing that trips everyone up. It trips everyone up. If you start looking, and you're climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, okay, in Africa, and I think it's 19,000 feet at the top. And if you stand at the bottom and you look 19,000 feet up, the first question that's going to happen is, of course, question you're going to ask yourself is, how am I going to do this? And then that question starts the ball rolling in a completely different direction. You start thinking about all the micro nuances that, instead of saying, and that's where the fear and doubt, by the way, comes in. You don't know if you can do it. You start thinking about your health. You start thinking about your prior training. You think about your fitness. You start thinking about your heart rate and water, and am I going to have enough, and all. You start thinking about all these things that could go wrong that are part of the how. Instead of thinking to yourself, I just put one foot in front of the other and trust that I'll get as far as I'm supposed to go. I'm not going to concern myself with where that is. If I make it to the top, and I believe that I will, then I will have made it there. But I have to put one foot in front of the other. And everybody who I've spoken with, I did speak with somebody recently who did climb it, I said, what was the biggest challenge for you? And he said, believe it or not, it wasn't the thin air. It wasn't the thin air. It was seeing other people falter along the way and wondering when I was. He said that was a challenge I had to get over. Yeah, wow. So I had to get over, because some people just can't get there because they get oxygen sickness, is it called?
Altitude sickness.
Altitude sickness, which is the oxygen gets thin and their body's unable to get enough oxygen and move forward. So, I mean, literally, it was interesting, that particular answer, because he had to continually trust in himself, regardless of the empirical evidence that it wasn't possible based on other people falling out, dropping out, right? So he did make it to the top, and I think that was very awesome of him. But that's just a metaphor. We look at, you get a brand new job, same thing. You're asked to do certain things. You have a job description, and at some particular point, you're going to ask yourself, how am I going to get all this done? How am I going to do this? How am I going to thrive in this environment? And what that does is it brings up all of these doubts and fears and worries and concerns that you should really be turning over to your higher self and just literally say, I've got this. I trust that I can make this happen. Whatever needs to happen, I trust I'll make it happen, and that the opportunities and my abilities will present themselves when necessary. It'll happen.
That's so true.
Right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll happen.
For our audience members who don't know how Michael and I met, we met through a gentleman. His name was Glenn Brooks, and Glenn was the founder of the Vibrant Living Network, and he would find lots of individuals and bring forth so many aspects of love, oneness, connection, all of the things that we speak about. But I know, Michael, and you probably had the same thing. Mike, when Glenn found me to be on a show about essential oils in regards to Lyme, and I thought, oh, there was fear there. Me being on a radio show, talking, sharing my knowledge. And then he said, after I ended up completing the show, and it was wonderful, and he said, I'd really love to have you consider joining me on a station in California. And I did that, and I did it every day for 3 years. It was fantastic. But at that first time you try something, there is fear and apprehension there. But each time it got easier, and the guests were so interesting. And I don't know if you remember, he always referred to the work of Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who wrote books on death and dying. And she would say there are only two emotions, love and fear. All the positive emotions come from love. All the opposite of positive emotions came from fear. And she said, from love flows happiness and contentment, peace and joy. And she said there was not an and. It wasn't love and fear, that you couldn't experience both at the same time. So it was love or fear. So when you bring yourself out of that place of fear, you need to just focus on the things that you love. Find something to love on. Even Carol Collins and the teachers say the same thing. Even if it's a photo on your phone, switch to that. Because when you're in that space, it'll take you out. And then the second part, which you brought up so eloquently, is trust. Trust. I'm not really quite sure why it is so difficult for us to trust our inner compass. So we recognize that we have this miraculous intelligence of life that guides us. Even when we logically can't see the way, we just have to trust. Trust. I mean, it is a powerful word. I don't know, Michael, do you have thoughts about why it is so difficult for people to trust?
Yeah, because we're not connected. We're
disconnected. That's a great...
Yeah, we're not connected. So our inner compass, if we're not connected to that inner compass, and really that's kind of what the show is about, learning to trust your inner guidance, then you are going to be subject to the whims of the external, the external people, processes, situations that you're exposed to. It's a crazy way to live, quite frankly, if you're relying on the external as your compass, because that external has no commitment to you. That external is not committed to you. It's not something that you can trust because it's always fluid, and it's got all the other things that are wrong with it that I can imagine, because it's not something that you can control. You have ultimate control over yourself when you start focusing on and connecting to your inner guidance, listening to your gut, listening to your heart, what feels good, what feels right for you. Then a lot of things change for you. You now have a trusted partner, which is what your higher self is anyway. Is your trusted partner.
That's great.
In this,
I like that idea.
In this whole game of life, you've got a trusted partner, and if you start paying attention to the energies and guidance of that trusted partner, and together with, because it's all about the way you feel. I told a gentleman the other day, he was calling me about, should I do this, should I do that? I said, what's your heart telling you? When you sit down and you think about these two options that you have, which one feels better for you? And he said, I don't know, this. And I said, well, go with that. Don't look at me to validate or to approve anything that you're looking to do. If you do that, then you'll always be doing that. If you always trust the external and look to the external for gratification, for approval, for acquiescence, then that's a very crazy way to live. You just don't know what you're going to be doing next, and you have no real connection to why you're here. What I'm talking about when we're talking about learning to trust your guidance, your inner guidance, it's a function of focusing on developing a relationship with yourself, right? And understanding
sovereignty, right?
when. Mm-hmm. Yeah, sovereignty. It's you have control over you. You don't have control over your external circumstances. You don't even have control, and that means you have no control over the motivations of anything external. And that's even crazier. When you allow other people around you, you crowdsource an idea, right? Was this a good thing or is this a bad thing? Instead of listening to your gut and what your heart is telling you, right? What your feelings are telling you, you can tell whether something's fun or whether something's not fun. You can tell when something is good for you and when it's not. You can feel love when you're connected to something, the passion, and you can feel when you're not passionate. These are just the simplest, basic aspect of things. And you have to go with that, right? If you're sitting in an office and you're doing something that you hate and your body is telling you that you hate it because of the way your body's reacting, you can't fool yourself because your body is telling you that you shouldn't be there doing that thing, right? Don't do that thing that makes you feel bad. Do something that does. When you start listening to that, making decisions based on how you feel, you're getting in deep connection with your higher self.
That's so true. That's so true. And I love
you
bringing up the difference between trust versus control, because so many of us want to control the outcome. We can't. And I think that's one of our greatest lessons, our soul's greatest lessons, is to trust, that we have to trust that we have an inner guidance. And I think for me, and as you said, that when you learn to trust, you release that burden of needing to know how everything's going to work out. And when you release that, it frees up your energy. Didn't you feel lighter? And then when you're freeing up your energy, you don't have this heavy burden. Then it's like more joy, and you're in this place where you can create wonderful things. It just seems to flow effortlessly. Really, truly.
Yeah. Listen, I got to tell you something. Give an example. Last weekend was a weekend that I haven't had in a long time, especially on Sunday, but my girlfriend's brother came into town. And we took the little corgi to a restaurant where the bartender was wanting us to bring our corgi in. And we're going like, what, can we bring them into this restaurant? I mean, I don't know, is that legal? So we finally asked the gal who was managing downstairs. She says, oh, yeah, come on, bring him in. Yeah, he's always welcome. So we brought him with her brother. We went there, and we took him upstairs. They have an open-air dining area. We sat at the bar and had a glass of wine, and little boy charmed everyone. The whole wait staff was like in love with him and talking about him, and they were coming over. The bartender came out, sat down on the ground, and he just he'll give you licks all over the place. It was really a wonderful experience. We sat there for about probably 45 minutes, and then we said, okay, we're going to go eat at this other place, this other restaurant. This is on the other side of town of the beach, and so we left there. We dropped little boy off at the house because he had been pretty much tuckered out by all the connection with everyone. And we left him there, and we went over to a different restaurant, which is kind of a sports bar kind of thing. And we watched some football and talked to the managers and the bartender and some other wait staff that were in there, and had a great time there. And then when we got done there, we went to a different place. And we hopped three. I said, have we ever done this before? We went to three of our favorite places in the same day. But it was so much fun. We just enjoyed ourselves, and it was a beautiful day. I mean, absolutely gorgeous day. And so it was so much fun to do that. We just didn't concern ourselves with, what time it was or where we were. We just knew that we have a certain time limit for the corgi at home, and that's probably around 4 hours, 4.5 hours. So we had a great time, and it was fun to get around with her brother who doesn't live here, and we hadn't seen him in, I think, 6 months. And so we just let fun guide us. Okay, let our energies, let our feelings guide us. We were having fun, so we kept having fun and kept having fun and kept having fun. And that's what Bashar was saying. Is it fun? Which one of these things would be more fun for you? Okay, go with that one. Go with the one that's more fun. Right? Why make it hard on yourself?
And you sprinkled corgi love everywhere you went. Magical fairy dust.
The interesting thing is,
they just loved him, I'm sure.
He did because he had been to that restaurant for lunch the day before. We had him. We brought him a lunch to that same restaurant, that sports bar. It's sort of upscale outdoors. It's got a patio. We brought him there the day before, Saturday. So they all knew who he was and asked about him, and it's fun. He's a ball of joy, I'll tell you. Ball of joy. He's got a big smile on his face all the time, big ears, and just a classic-looking little tricolor that everybody loves, and they love to see him walk away because his hind quarter is so cute. He's got this little wobble, as they all do, and everybody just cracks up and laughs and has a really good time when he's around, which is why we take him out, because acclimating to people and kids, and he likes to lick everybody, kiss everybody, and he has such fun. But, the life of a corgi is very simple. Why can't we just have fun? Why do we have to make it hard on ourselves, difficult for us, more challenging? Why do we make life more challenging? If we learn to simply listen to our bodies and how we feel. What is your body telling you? What is your heart telling you? What are the feelings surrounding this? If you get in a vibe, positive, negative vibe, neutral vibe, go with the most positive frequency, the most positive vibe. Go with that. See what happens.
Right.
Because
and when you
never know who you might
him
meet.
Out, you didn't go into the minutiae. Well, there was no fear or no negativity. You weren't worried about all of the opposite of positive things could happen when you take him out. You just know, and you're replacing that with love. You know that the unconditional love that he has is going to spread and that he's going to be well received, and there's not going to be any issues. And you don't have any issues. Everything unfolds perfectly. And as you said, you don't normally go to 3 restaurants at once, but it was sort of like, okay, well, you open that door and here's another one and here's another one. And what else is on the next horizon? And I think that's a really great example, Michael, of how things can flow when we trust in that connection, and we allow things to unfold the way that we should. And you didn't look for external validation either. I'm sure you and Sandy didn't go, oh, well, do you think this is right? I don't know. Do you think we should do that? No, I don't know. I mean, you had the courage to trust your inner guidance. And that's a big part of it.
Think about it for a second. What is somebody, the number one thing everybody I know who travels the world says is get lost. That's what they say. Mm-hmm. They say get lost. Don't plan everything. Just get lost. Get up, walk out of your hotel, and walk down various streets. Of course, you got to make sure that the place you're in has a modicum of safety about it, and you got to do it at the right time. However, if you're in a first world city, no big deal. You're walking around, you're making it's like Italy. You're in a town, all of a sudden you make a left and you go down, you discover a really cool shop, you some people, a cafe that's that's hidden away. We had a great time in one in Portugal. We went up in Old Town and walked down some narrow little walkways and ran into a little coffee shop run by I think he was a Ukrainian guy. Running a shop that we stopped. We had some coffee, and Sandy had a glass of wine, and we chilled. We talked with him about his life and being there, and he enjoyed it. And it's fun to support people's dream. That's so much fun to support somebody else's dream.
And it is fun to just get lost too. I did that when I traveled in Europe. I get on a train and get off where it looked interesting, and sometimes explored for just a little bit, and sometimes stayed the night because there was more that I wanted to see. And then I missed a train. And because I missed a train, it was the last train out. I ended up having one of the best meals that I had, a Chinese restaurant that was fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
In Innsbruck, Austria. And then I ended up ordering a second meal, and I never do that. It was so good. It was so
Chinese
good.
food is so different. Yeah.
Yeah. And then when I left there, I went to Venice afterwards, and I got a hotel with a bathtub so I could wash all, because I had to sleep in the train station. There wasn't anywhere else to sleep by the time I got done. So it was, but you know what? I met some colorful people that night, and it was great. Yeah,
of course. Yeah, it's like the food sometimes that you think you stumble upon it, but really you're supposed to just, if you follow your joy, you end up in the right place at the right time. Best Chinese food I had in a long time in Manchester, England, and Turkish food, believe it or not, in Manchester, England. One of the most amazing Turkish restaurants. And it was, having lived in Turkey for 3 years, I could recognize it and had an instantaneous connection with the owner, who'd spent 22 years on Norwegian cruise lines as a chef. And the food was spectacular, and so spectacular. We went back the next day, and ate at the same restaurant because it was so different and so unique. But you get these opportunities when you are simply following your joy. I think we talked about that before. Follow your joy, and see where it leads you.
That's
follow your joy.
And that's trusting your inner compass. I mean, I think you're absolutely right about following your joy. And if you remember, a while back we had a conversation about positive psychology and the beautiful connection between love, joy, and authenticity. And I think that's what we're really doing. When you truly know yourself, like really understand who you are at the core, and you honor that, that's when you're fully authentic. And when you're living true to who you are as an individual, that's what allows you to live fully in joy. For me, I love that word, and I love the word delight. I keep seeing it everywhere ever since we had the show with Carol Collins. I think this is delightful because I'm filled with light. I really like that idea. And Sarah Landon, she talked about this extraordinary power within us that we all possess. And I think that that's part of what you and I, when we do these shows, I hope that our audience members can really understand. We truly mean it. Each and every one of you have this amazing power within you, this incredible light. And when you learn to operate from this power, that's when you can make heart-centered decisions on your journey, regardless of whatever the external circumstances dictate. And as Michael had said in our last episode, that both of us are still learning. And we like to share what it is that we learn with you. So hopefully some of these tools are of value. I really do hope so, because it is the truth.
Yeah, so true and wonderfully said, eloquently said, as usual. This is a journey that you can have a lot of fun on, and regardless of what you perceive your status in life to be. And we know that a lot of people out there are, I know in the United States and around the world, people are getting caught up in the fight and struggle of life. And you move beyond that. You have to understand that fight and struggle is a perception that you continue to multiply and compound. Because if you perceive your life to be a fight or struggle, that perception will drive how you feel and how you interact with everything externally in your life. It defines it for you. You define everything as a fight or struggle. And you get beyond that by dropping that perception, by just seeing things occurring in life as just things occurring in life, and that they're not happening to you. They're happening out there to give you an opportunity, to give you a choice, really, as to whether to be in fight and struggle or whether to be in love and joy. That's really it. Love and joy will bring you more than fight and struggle, because fight and struggle are contracting energies. They just contract, and they don't expand. Love and joy and fun expands. They're expansive energies. So that means that when they expand, there's more to come to you, more to come your way, more opportunities will come your way. And it's akin to this. If you fear, if you're going to a job interview and you're fearing what will happen, whether you can do the job, whether you'll be good in the interview and all of that, that mindset will define your behavior in the interview. Your tone of voice, your body language, everything will simply, and your energy field will be one of fear. Yet if you go and you trust in your inner guidance, you trust your own compass to walk in, be confident, let the chips fall where they may, just be the best person that you can be, the most authentic person that you can be, that will create a completely different experience for you. And that's in everything that you do.
That's so true. In everything that you do, 100%. Mm-hmm. I think we forget. Oftentimes we're getting stuck in the drama or the trauma or whatever it is, and you just have to keep bringing yourself back to love, no matter what it is. And when you have that, and we spoke about it before, the importance of taking a breath and knowing, it's sort of like a quiet knowing there's this noise that's all around us. We're being bombarded by so many different things between technology, television, and the news, all those other things. But we sort of need to just take a step back and take a deep breath and really work on our heart intelligence. And as Dr. David Clements said, the heart is not just an organ. It's a transmitter of that consciousness. So we need to just allow ourselves to tune into that. Put your hand on your heart. I think that that's a very simple way to do so. When you put your hand on your heart and just say, I trust the intelligence of my heart. It may seem like a silly practice, but I think that there is something when you do put your hand on your heart, which is probably why they have it. You do it when you sing the national anthem, right? That you're tuning in and you're choosing to listen. It's just quieting. It's a connection. And so if you need to quiet all of the dissonance around you, just put your hand on your heart and find remembrances of the things that you love, and then trust that you are divinely guided and allow things to unfold. And it's a practice. We are all learning to listen before we leap into a drama, trauma, whatever else it is. But when you practice that and you just sort of say, you know what, I have a choice. I have a choice to practice being connected to love. I think that's sort of when all of the ego falls away and we're sort of retuning and refining that compass. It's ironic because I love compasses. I have lots of old vintage compasses, and I have one on a chain, and I'll wear it. And sometimes the old ones, the dial is so fragile, and it just takes a little. It's the smallest little movement that gets it going. All sorts of crazy waves, but it's a really good analogy because it's not in the big steps, as you said. It's like the baby steps. It can be the small steps that can make all the difference in our path and what unfolds for us.
So true. Dr. David Clements said something really interesting, and it was about perception. And he said the first step in connecting with your heart as source intelligence and your higher self is in perceiving that your heart is something more than just an organ that beats in your chest, right? It is more than simply pumping blood in your body, around your body, through your body. It is source intelligence itself. It is greater than what you have previously perceived it to be. That so it's the living energy by which you are thriving. It is responsible for the energy field that you're putting out. It is also one of the deepest and most magnificent connections to intelligence that you're ever going to experience in your lifetime. We think it's outside of us. We think it's in our head, but no. The perception that your heart is greater than what you've been perceiving it to be is the first step. And that's because that will drive everything else. That it's not just something you start taking care of it, you start speaking to it, you put your hand on it and you connect with it, you breathe into it, and you just keep moving forward with the connection that you have with your heart and see what unfolds. See what unfolds. Pay attention to how it feels. Pay attention to the way your energy field that emanates from it interacts with the world around you, the external world. And we've all walked into a room and we've come across somebody who repels us. We've all done that. We've all had our energy field impacted by something that was out of balance. And we've known it. And it's not just a coincidence. We start paying attention to it, right? You've gone out on a date with someone and you just didn't feel right the entire time. I think that's pretty much telling you something, right? It's telling you that your energies are incompatible with this other person's energies and that they have some work to do. It's not that there's something wrong with them. It's just they've got some work to do. They're operating from a different space, a different frequency than you, and your frequencies don't match. And that's simply it. And learning to guide your way through I brought up an interview because I'm writing a short article about interviews and energy and things of that nature. And what's interesting is you could be when you're sitting in an interview and you recognize that a feeling that you're uncomfortable with that particular individual, you got to ask yourself, would I want this person to be my boss? Would I want to interact with this energy every single day? Right? That's what you have to ask yourself. Do I want to feel this way when I connect with this individual every single day? And hopefully the answer is no. And you want to be where you're supposed to be, where the energies are simpatico, that they're synchronous with yours, and that there's always going to be situations where other people in your office who aren't overseeing you have an energy that's different than yours. That's okay. That's normal. You want to be the light. You want to be the example, as Bashar puts it. You want to be the example of what other people can aspire to be. Mm-hmm. That's what you are. You're the example. I get people tell, you're so amazing. This has got such light. Like that guy in the bar. You want to be the example. You want other people to see what is possible when you are positive and you're in the mode of having fun and being joyful in everything that you do. When you're experiencing that fun and joy, the other people will see you and they go, wow, it's amazing. I want to be like that, right? What do I have to do to be like that? Sometimes they'll walk up to you and ask you, how can I be like you? And then they learn my name is Mike and they go, how can I be like Mike? Okay, that's a little Michael Jordan joke from a commercial, be like Mike. But yeah, I get that all the time from people who are of that era, Michael Jordan era. I want to be like Mike. I want to be like Mike. And I said, yeah, well, you don't want to be like. I'm just an example of what you can be like, and that's what we all are. We're living examples of a higher consciousness, and which is what we need right now in this world. We need more living examples of people who are living from a higher consciousness, living from the internal versus the external. That's what we need right now in this world in order to propagate more.
Yeah, and I think part of that is the truth of our own love, our own connection, our own loving connection. And when we start to acknowledge that, you can walk into a room, as you said, there may be somebody that is not on the same vibe as you, but you can find loving ways to act without having to really interact with that person and cause a challenge. It's sometimes in the smallest moments, and I don't remember who it was I was listening to, and they said that we really want to shift what's going on in the world. We need to work on ourselves, that sovereign self first, and really know.
Pam Gregory.
Was that who it was? Was that, yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Probably.
Oh yeah.
Probably.
Absolutely.
And each do our
Pam Gregory.
part. And know, so when you're in a situation like that, what does love know to be true about this situation? And I think when you ask yourself that question, you can have a perception, and we can bypass all the fear and the ego and everything else, and we're just re-engaging with that heart intelligence. And that's how we connect to the highest, most loving truth. That's the answer of who you are. And it's free, and it's pure, and it's sovereign guidance that you'll receive. I mean, I think that as we move into that knowing, really that's how we shift what's going on in the world.
True.
So thank you for reminding me that it was Pam. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You're feeding the consciousness. You're feeding the global consciousness what we want the world to be, instead of continually ratifying what we don't want it to be. And that's really, I remind myself of that every single day in terms of when I come across something external. When you're judging and you're making yourself out to be a victim, complaining about something, that is the energy that you're feeding into the grid. And we've got enough of that. That's the issue with the world right now that needs to change. In order to elevate the entire global consciousness, to get away from war and get away from fear and doubt and shaming ourselves and all of these things that we see as being problematic to moving forward, we have to actually focus on what we can control, which is feeding the grid fun and joy and love, positivity. That's it. At every turn that we can, that's it. Put it out there. And when we're emanating it ourselves, it's going directly into the grid. And if everybody made the decision to do that, many, if not all, of the institutions that thrive and survive by creating the fear and the doubt and the unhappiness that we're allowing that we're absorbing, that's a control mechanism. It's a control mechanism. We have to live from love and joy because that's something we have total control over. That's part of our sovereignty. When we live from sovereignty, nobody can touch us. We are untouchable. No one can make us feel one way or another. Whatever they do, we live from sovereignty. And I'll say Nelson Mandela lived from sovereignty for 27 years in a 6x8 cell. Lived from sovereignty, and that's how he was able to get through it. Is to understand that situation, his external circumstances, were not in control of how he felt about himself. Yeah, extreme example, but it's one that we should all take to heart, and knowing that that's the way it works. All right.
Thank you.
It's been a wonderful time with you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
As usual.
I've run us a little over.
It's been amazing. I know it's okay. I appreciate the information that you share and the wisdom that you share on every episode, and I love that we've explored this idea of trusting because it's woven into each and every one of us. Love is part of the essence of who we are. It's just a matter of trusting that inner guidance and on our path and our journey.
Do it.
And and until next time.
Let's do it. Appreciate
Peace
it
out.
so much.
Stay in love.
Appreciate
Walk
you.
the path. Only your soul can watch. Likewise. Thank you.
Beautiful. Bye-bye.